On Earth podcast with your host, Jake Weaver. Engineered by Cedric Swan. Hey, everybody. We are back with another episode of Midnight on Earth. I'm your host, Jake Weaver, and we are here to bring you more knowledge, more light, and more love, and more incredible people like Maureen St. Germain. We have Maureen St. Germain here with us today, talking about a lot of things, but her most recent book, Living Your Best 5D Life, Timeless Tools to Achieve and Maintain, super important, your new reality. So we're going to be talking to her. We're going to be talking about this book. But first, I need you to do something for me. Follow me on Instagram at midnight_on_earth. That is the address. You can follow me there. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, wherever you go to get your podcasts. Click that button that connects us so you know exactly what's going on. When powerful people come on, everyone's powerful in their own way. A lot of people have done a lot of work, and Maureen's done a lot of work. When people like Maureen have come on the show, they come on the show, you know about it instantly. You get that notification. And of course, most importantly, tell a friend. Tell someone that you know that loves these type of podcasts. You know our frequency. You know their frequency. You know if they need this information. Bring them here. midnightonearth.com. Okay, we're just about to talk to Maureen, but first I have to read her bio. So here we go. Maureen J. St. Germain is the founder of the St. Germain Mystery School, the Ascension Institute Mystery School, and Akashic Records International. An internationally recognized teacher and intuitive, she is also the creator of more than 30 guided meditation CDs now available on the app Illuminate. She is the author of 8 books, including Waking Up in 5D. She lives near Sedona, Arizona, and offers workshops worldwide. And she's here with us today. Hello, Maureen.
Hi, nice to be here with you. I'm excited to hear.
I'm excited too. You're such a legend. You've been doing this work for over 30 years at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And you've contributed so much. It's such a huge thing. What are some of the biggest changes in attitudes, in societal perceptions, and other things related to spirituality since you started getting into this to now? What are the big seismic shifts you've noticed?
Well, you know, when I started out, there were so many things I believed that were so off the wall that people never even thought about. But, you know, even reincarnation is much more accepted as a possibility than before. And people's belief system that they could be holy or worshipful, but not necessarily part of a church. You know, those are important shifts that I've seen in people. Wow. And then subtle shifts are like when people, they know that something is up. They know that things are changing, but they can't quite figure out why. So they, for example, they have these time warps and they're aware that they're seeing something and no one else is seeing them. You know, like being at a stoplight, for example, you could have the light change, you're 3 cars back, and then suddenly the first guy finally moves. And it happens enough that you realize that you're actually seeing in 5D. You're seeing what's happening before the people in 3D have seen it yet, you know?
So those time warps, you believe, are indicators that people experience that they acknowledge, but maybe they don't even share, but they're picking up overall.
Yes. And it's like they're slowly waking up to the fact that intuition among friends is very common, and intuition among strangers is also common, is situational, you know, like circumstances. You meet people that you may know, but you haven't talked to in 20 or 30 years, and you just run into them. Those kinds of what people call coincidences are also on the rise, and that's helping people to wake up.
So because they're seeing the synchronicities or those coincidences as some sort of ethereal language, like the mathematics are so improbable that those events seem to indicate some higher spirituality. They have to.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then another thing that I'm seeing is a tolerance for other people's views that is greater than theirs. So they might meet people that they don't get or don't understand, but they're not uncomfortable. They're okay with it. You know, and there's a small segment that's hanging on to the reality that we've got, you know, for dear life. And they're still stuck in judgment, prejudice, and so on. But the rest of the reality is just starting to understand that the reality we thought we knew isn't real, and the reality that we are moving to isn't known. And so it's really important to be able to accept yourself and the situations around you as your new normal, because that's what's happening. The whole thing, the whole platform on which we operate today is different than what we did when we were kids. You know, and some of us were ahead of that curve. You know, I think I was born awake because I never had a wake up like everybody else.
Really?
You know, even as a kid, I knew stuff. I remember when I was in kindergarten and the teacher asked, you know, what is your address? And I didn't know. And I lived on a farm in a remote place, you know, and was kindergarten was, you know, at like the city center. And it wasn't much of a city center, you know, a town hall and I don't know, some other building. Anyway, so kindergarten was in the upstairs of the town hall. And then the teacher asked me my phone number. And I remember looking at her and saying, why are you asking me this question? I can tell that it's on the paper in front of you. She sent a note home to my mom.
Has gifts.
Yeah. And you know, when I was in college, I was taking an exam, a astronomy class, you know, and there's pretty heavy duty physics. And I knew the answer. And the phone rang. And I remember thinking, I know the answer, but I don't remember it. I have no idea what to tell this person. The phone rang. I was taking it orally. I was in a very progressive environment, and the teacher was allowing students to take their final exam orally. And while she's on the phone, I downloaded the answer.
And then you gave it to her at that point, probably blew her mind.
The teacher was a nun, of all people.
Oh my goodness. So then did she...
A very progressive nun. And a very progressive Catholic school.
Did she think it was related to Christian Christ energy, or did she think it was something else?
Oh no, this was astronomy class. We're talking physics and black holes and all kinds of stuff like that.
But she was still a nun.
Yeah. Oh yeah, really smart. And she I mean, you know, it was a great astronomy class. We, you know, she said in one of the classes, you know, I'll get the telescope out if any one of you want to get a group of people together. So I literally hunted down, you know, 9 of my friends that I dragged to the roof of the dorm, and she came out with her telescope and we got a lesson. That's cool. You know, and I've always been interested in stuff like that. So
But there was no catalyst, like you're saying. Like there was nothing that just popped your third eye open. You feel like you were born that way. But did you experiment with psychedelics at all? Did that amplify any of your intuitions?
No, I had marijuana once, and I got so high that I said to myself, I am never doing this again because I'll lose control. So that was it for me.
Wow. So all this information came to you in a natural way, you could say. You utilized all of the techniques like meditation and everything.
Yeah, through meditation. And the thing is, as you elevate yourself, it becomes your everyday stuff. So I would get information just walking around.
Right.
You know.
But you weren't scared of it at all. Like it didn't intimidate you. You weren't wondering why you had this ability and information was coming to you. You accepted it, loved it, and integrated it, sounds like.
When I was a little girl, and around that same era of age 6 or 7, I was aware that I was being watched. And I was aware that there were benevolent, and I was aware that there were non-benevolent. And I wasn't scared then either. I remember being aware, there's some kind of energy that's watching me that's not for my good. And then there were other energies that were watching me that were my guardians or whatever. I was aware of that. So I was never frightened.
Interesting. No, that's so beautiful. People talk about star seeds, other type of angelic type star seeds that incarnate in the third dimension. Do you feel resonant
I was very fortunate. My mom was very, very psychic, and she didn't really use it that much, but she would come out with statements, like she woke up from a dream one morning and said to my dad, I dreamt that your mother died this morning. And grandma lived next door, and she had an aneurysm and died that day.
Oh my God.
And she, my mom and dad together went to Jose Silva, and they brought me home a book that Jose Silva had signed.
Oh, wow. So they were open to it. They were open to those energies. And a lot of people will say that star seeds choose parents like that are more opening and welcoming. Do you resonate with those concepts at all? Star seed or
for sure.
Some sort of angelic?
In fact, I am of the mind that there are many ascended master children in embodiment. And the same thing is true, that the parents have to have a different mindset to raise these kids. And there's a number of ways you can tell if your child is what I would call an ascended master. They've already achieved mastery, and they might not be an ascended master that you and I have heard of, but they're definitely masters. They're fearless. So they do stuff that shakes the bejeebers out of for the parents. They are incorrigible. So they don't even understand when you get upset, why you're upset. And I know people who've had children like this. And the way to deal with that is you must put your hands on their shoulders, and then you look them in the eye and you say, look, honey, I know that what you did was fine for you. So you make them okay. You don't tell them they were bad or wrong. But other kids will copy you, and they don't have your abilities. And this is not to make you better, but just to help you understand that you have abilities that some kids don't have. And you cannot do this because you're putting everybody in danger. Everybody's in danger. And that helps them calibrate. And then they'll listen.
Interesting. It's more of a frequency-based communication, it seems like. But do you feel like when you say ascended masters, could they be what Buddhists call bodhisattvas, that choose to come back after they hit that final point where they could go to that next place? Or they are, or are they, like you said, different ascended masters from cultures that may have been lost to history?
I think there's probably both, to be honest. Okay. Yeah. Because you're right, that those who come back, like the bodhisattvas, even Kuan Yin was a bodhisattva. And so that may be true. What I know, though, is and this has come through in the Akashic records, because I open the Akashic records for people. And when a parent gets, they say, what do I do with this child, and the record keepers come back with, well, the child isn't a ascended master. They've already achieved mastery. They're here to be part of the solution. You cannot try and tie them down. It will only frustrate you and him or her. You must choose to communicate simply by expressing how their actions affect other people. Real straightforward. Even if it's, when you go outside and play before school, that's great because you're, looking after yourself, you've had your breakfast, whatever. But when your mother calls and says, it's time to leave, you can't just linger because now you're putting your mother at risk. She might be late for her work. See, it's like that.
Right.
Instead of, I told you, blah, blah, blah.
Well, I have a few of those children myself. Actually, I have 4 of them. So I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. So now you have some new marching orders.
Oh, absolutely.
That will help you get more from your experience. Yeah. So it's very interesting. And you must honor their choices. So like if you say you have 4, so if let's say one of them's been cutting school or something, to say, okay, I'm with you, I got you. But just remember, there is a law that says you must go to school unless we're doing homeschooling. And I can't do homeschooling because I'm busy over here. So, if you want to take that risk, I'll take it with you. But they could put me in jail. And if you get caught, you could end up in a foster home. And if you want to take that risk, I'm with you.
Right, because those higher vibrational children, they just need that love and support because love is such a higher vibrational energy.
That's right. And you're basically talking to them like they're an adult.
Yes. Yes, I learned that early on.
Look, I don't like what you're doing, but you're an individual. I'm responsible for you. But if you choose this, I got you.
Right.
And what's interesting is when they know that their actions are detrimental to the parent, they back off.
Right, because they're energy sensitive.
When they know the actions are detrimental to, other kids, they can back off. Because they're ascended, they're strong-willed. They're like unstoppable.
Right. And really, that's their subconscious being. It's just their essence that has that frequency of just like movement, action, and
that's
authority.
Right. It's the frequency. It is totally the frequency. And that's well said. And so the thing is, when you empower them, you take them to a place where they're in charge.
Right. Because ultimately they are in charge of their own reality. It's just an illusion from their perspective. And we're supposed to be the supporting actors, and supporting, I mean, by giving them the love that they need.
I used to tell myself that my kids were on loan because I found it difficult to accept people who said, my child this and my child that. And I always thought, he's on loan. I'm just a caretaker temporarily, like you just said.
Right.
And adults who are ascended, this is another tip off, they can't get past life sessions to work. So they go to somebody for a past life regression and there's nothing there because their records are locked. They're like a trust fund and they're just not available for frivolous stuff.
Interesting.
Now you might get a past life memory come up in a circumstance. And it becomes very evident what it was, like being married to someone who killed you in another lifetime and now you're working it out or something like that. But if you went to get a past life reading or a past life session, there's nothing there. And that's why. It's not the fact that the regressionist doesn't know what they're doing, isn't any good. It's that your records are locked. And it's happened enough that I know, and I've been shown that, that's what's going on. Kind of cool.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. I've never really heard that before. And it's something that you access a lot. And these children that you're talking about, they are in themselves an indicator of this new earth that's coming, the 5D integration. But I want to explain to our listeners from your perspective, because people have different definitions, but I want to hear what your perspective is on what 5D is exactly.
Okay. So 5D is a vibrational data set. What that means to you and I is that we can be sliding in and out of it. And it's like a sine wave. So some days we're 5D and other days we're not. Some days somebody pushes our buttons and we're still reactionary or sensitive. Then we drop back down into third. So it's not like getting a driver's license that once you get it, you're there. You can always drive. It's more like, I need a car. I need to find a car, Right. So I need to get to 5D. So there's ways to get into 5D. And there's other times that you just float there because you're in a blissful place or a blissful experience. So as you can tell from the book, one of the things I teach is how to be intentional in being fifth dimension. And the joke is everybody's going to be 5D, whether they want to or not. So you may as well be learning the system. Right. If you were in high school and you played football and the school announced, we're dropping football, it's too rough. From now on, we're only going to offer soccer. You'd learn the rules of soccer. Or if they said we're not doing any physical support sports anymore, we're going to only have a chess team. If you wanted to participate in games, you'd learn how to play chess. And so that's what's happening. We are at the edge of the end. In fact, one of the ascended masters that I channel, Sanat Kumara, said, the game is over. And we've all heard that when you play games, right? The game is over. And then he said, the game will end when there are no more players. And then he said, will you be the first to leave or the last?
Interesting, because so many people.
And as soon as I heard that, I went, I'm out. I'm not going to play that game. And it's very tempting. It's very tempting. You think, I have 4 sons, and you think you've done a good job, but sometimes your kids do something that they don't realize how deeply they can wound you. And, it wants to pull you back into
3D.
Yeah.
Oh man, no, I understand. It's because the situations themselves create emotional reactions, and then
exactly
in a sense that pulls you into not lower brain function, but not focusing your consciousness on that 5D perspective.
Exactly. It's like one of my friends said to me one time, whoever started the business of giving cards for your birthday? And why is that important, for example? And the answer is, we live in a society that has been manipulated and maneuvered and controlled. We're being heavily influenced by the energies that are beaming at us. So anything from our stove or refrigerator that are giving off a vibe to the Wi-Fi or the cell phone towers or the television or radio towers, they're all carrying a vibe. And there's 2 primary messages that are coming through. And the first one is forget, forget, forget. So you hear something that triggers your mind opening, but then you forget. And the second message is reject, reject, reject. So even if you get far enough to go, wow, that's really something, then a second vibe that you're carrying, that you and I are carrying. But when we're meditating on a regular basis and when we're doing our spiritual work, that vibe is still there, but we're coming in higher like this. So it doesn't bother us. Like we can stand at the beach where the waves are crashing on our feet. And as long as we don't go too deep, we can withstand the bigger waves. But if we go further in where we're covered up with the water, we're going to get swept with that wave. And the same is true with what's going on around us. There is so much energy embracing us in a way to make us conform and to believe we don't have control, that it causes us to fall in line because we don't know any better, and it's really evident in lots and lots of ways. the music business and the corporate culture and all these things demand conformity. So I asked a friend who works for a car company, what do you wear to work? And he said, well, everybody wears the same white shirt and a blue tie and gray or black pants. 6,000 people, they all dress the same.
Oh my God.
And it's not required. It's just the culture.
Interesting.
They want to fit in. So the breaking free isn't just a matter of an act of will. It has to be a proactive will that you step out of that slushy and into your own power. And staying in your own power is probably the most important way to be centered. So how do you stay in your own power? Well, the number one thing, and I find this very entertaining, is to stop saying, I have to. I have to pick up the kids. I have to meet my friend. I have this. I have to this. I promised this report instead. I agreed to do this. I'm leaving. I'm tired. I need to go. Instead of I have to. Because when we say I have to, that means we've allowed some other authority, some other energy to be my boss. I'm not in my power when I speak that. And we all know the power of the spoken word. I mean, right. We've learned that well enough that most people know the power of the spoken word is super important. So why would you want to give your power away every time you talk about the obligations that you signed up for?
Interesting. It changes the frequency.
And the answer is, I signed up for this. I signed up to be a good mom. I signed up to show up at work. I signed up to, do our interview, for example. So I own my actions. I don't have to do anything. And every once in a while, I'll say it and I'll catch myself, or my husband will catch me, or vice versa, I'll catch him. And it's quite fun when we do that because, we're like on each other,
But it sounds like that technique switches the frequency, switches the energy to some sort of leaking, you can say. You're leaking out this energy to this external self-created power that I have to do this. You're bringing that energy in, containing it, and like you're saying, taking ownership of each decision. So there's just no leaking.
That's right. That's right. And that's very powerful. So, you might hurt people's feelings. I'm having a birthday party, but I'm not inviting you. And I'm telling you up front, you're not invited. That's hard. Okay. That's hard to do. And it's against the society's rules. But if I know that I don't want you there because you're going to spoil the party, or you're going to embarrass me because you're going to show up in a clown costume and I don't want any clown costumes, I have the right to say that. But most people would dance around all that. So staying in your power is pretty intense at times because you're choosing wisely. You're choosing what's best for you. And, as you say, the social conventions cause us to want to conform. And I know you from just, meeting you and reading your field, you're standing out there saying you do not have to conform and your life is your life and let's make the best of it. I can feel it.
Yes, absolutely.
And it's a very powerful place to hold space.
Well, what happens, I'd like to add to that, Maureen, what happens, I believe, when you bring your power back in, you hold that out, you're not leaking it everywhere, it amplifies. It's not just like a battery storing it. You're now attracting new energies that are empowering you because the strength of your will, you're moving your choices from your body's influence into your true consciousness where you truly reside. The light, you're the living light. So then you're coming from that place and then you're bringing your energies in. And what happens? You're being empowered, but not in an egotistical way, but strangely in an ethereal way that makes your presence, your being that much greater, and your love and your influence.
That's right. Your love, your influence, and also your ability to control the outside elements. So, once you are in this place of being centered, then the ability to work with energy, the ability to help people heal when they want help, the ability to work with the weather, all these things are within your bailiwick, within your capacity. And the most important thing for individuals is to know that they don't have to anything. When a person says, well, I have to go to work, and if I quit my job, then I don't have any way to make money. But the truth is, when you announce to the universe, I'm ready to quit, I'm willing to quit, I need a replacement, let's get with it, then I'm quitting on this day, and I have enough money to get me through the next month, and then I'm out. So I really need some help here. That ownership makes it happen.
Oh, absolutely. Because that ownership, like you're saying, it creates a vacuum. Nature abhors a vacuum. The universe will use its functions to fill that vacuum. And if you create the space for what you want, and there's this emptiness there, it will fill that emptiness with what your desire is. We have that power. This is also part of the 5D understanding, I believe.
That's right. That's right. So going back to 5D, in contrast to 3D and 4D, 5D is a vibrational data set. It looks like here, but the capacity we have to enjoy our life, to live from a state of consciousness and choice is huge. 3D is a place where we believe in polarity.
Right.
We believe polarity is necessary. And the interesting thing about that is the kind of polarity we believe in the most is good and bad, right and wrong. In 5D, you could still have a sense of up and down. You could have a sense of a light collar and a white jacket. You could have contrast, but the polarity is not a trajectory. It is a experience. So we're moving to a way of being aware of differences without needing to choose sides.
Yes, because we're all one human family. And then part of that 5D understanding is the interconnectedness of all humans and all life, really all life out in the universe and everything. But just here in the earth plane, it's that realization that we are all one. And that's truly when we're treating other people the way that we want to be treated. It really is like we're all one. So you're just doing that to yourself. That's part of the understanding. That's part of it, that greater love.
And it's hard for everyone to stay in that 5D place. Exactly. And one time I asked my guides, am I doing anything to throw myself out of 5D? And they said, yeah. And so I asked them what? And this is about, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago. And I was living in San Diego at the time. And San Diego traffic is a little intense and people are a little bit aggressive. And if somebody would, cut in front of me, I might say, well, that guy's an idiot. Or what does he think he's doing? Didn't he see me? With attitude. And so, my guides point this out because I asked. And anybody can ask you in meditation, what am I doing to throw myself out of 5D? I'm assuming I'm going to stay in 5D, but is there anything I'm doing that's going to throw me out? So then what I chose to do is I started making up stories about the other drivers that would be fun and funny. Oh, he's in a big hurry. He's in a bigger hurry than me. Or he probably didn't see me. And, I got to the point where the stories were so ludicrous that I started laughing. And once I started laughing, then I didn't care what people did.
Right. And you brought that power back in, and there is a layer where it's all an illusion anyway. And the reactions, the choices the energy that you put out is recognized somehow by the Akashic records or these angelic beings or other beings. And if that's the case, then those situations are training, in a sense, helping you to achieve that new state of awareness. And people feel things, and you talk about this in your book quite a bit. they feel things that people are calling ascension symptoms because we're moving into this new earth. It's inevitable. The earth's evolving. The universe is evolving. Everything's evolving into this new bandwidth. And people that are sensitive to it are having certain symptoms. And it's not connected to a specific illness, but they're having them nonetheless. They're calling them ascension symptoms. Can you tell me more about this?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Some of the symptoms are very tangible, like an upset stomach. There's a story about a man who was told by his guides he needed to move to vegetarianism, but he still enjoyed his hamburger and he still was eating, a fair amount of meat. And one day he got food poisoning so bad that he got the message. Okay, so that's kind of funny. And then there's people who hear, for example, I can hear in my head Wi-Fi energy.
I can hear Bluetooth. Me too. I know I was going to bring that up.
Yeah. Okay. We'll come back. We'll circle back to that. And then there's other symptoms. Now, the first thing, of course, we're not doctors. We want you to eliminate any possibility that there's other stuff going on. But once you do that, once you've checked yourself out and you made sure that whatever's going on is not from some thing that is going on, it's physical, that needs attention of some sort, then you can begin to comprehend that if you're sensitive and you've been hanging out with some people who are arguing all the time, that you might get a really bad headache. And you wouldn't realize that those two events were tied, but because you're sensitive, you're feeling the energy and they're depleting you. So when those people leave, all of a sudden you're just out of it. Other ascension symptoms can be physical pains. Like a number of people get pain in their head right around here, right around the eyebrows, all the way around to the back. And, if it's just at the temples, a lot of people call it a migraine. But if it's the entire head, what's usually happening is the pineal is being activated and expanding. And when the pineal is expanding, it's got to have room to grow. So it literally pushes your cranium out, and that can hurt if your physical body isn't, it's just a thing that causes that kind of pain. So when you can't figure the source of this kind of pain, then you ask in meditation. And one of the things that I feel very strongly about, I'm going to keep circling back to the ascension.
Sure.
Is to know what you know. And so early on, I wanted to make sure that I was getting good information. So I developed a technique to understand your higher self. And because in meditation, I knew my higher self was giving me good information, I asked my higher self to help me develop a protocol that anybody could use to connect with their higher self and to get 100% accuracy. And I've put it in all my books. It's that important. It's very simple. It's also on the app. So if you have the Illuminate app, then you just go to the wisdom section and it's right there. And it's 3 primary steps. And you take yourself in meditation and you determine symbols or signals for yes, no, and neutral. And it could be that you're seeing a beautiful color, like your background. It could be that you are visualizing some kind of sacred geometry. You see shapes, or like the stuff that's behind me. You might have a sensation in your body, like an itchy ear or a tingly finger. And then for no, maybe you get a pit in your stomach, or you feel, a strange sensation in your back. And then there's neutral, which has 5 other meanings, but there's a symbol for it. And a lot of people see neutral as a horizon, or they see it as a center line, maybe in the body. So you establish that to start with. And then you follow these simple rules, which are the 45 days of practice, where you ask unimportant, insignificant questions. And what that does is just like learning a new language. You're teaching yourself to recognize your higher self's information. And a lot of people are getting good information, but they have no way of verifying it. They have no way of validating it. So they follow it sometimes, and then they follow it They don't follow it other times. And when people tell me, oh, I have a good intuition, I don't need that protocol, I'll laugh and say, okay, just answer one question. Do you follow it 100%? No. Well, then you don't have good intuition because you don't trust it. Right. You only trust it when you think you trust it. What if you had a fail-safe that you could check? You get a piece of information. Is this my higher self? Yes. Is my higher self telling me to do this? Yes. And there's some very cool stories that I would like to share if we have time.
Sure.
But in the meantime, going back to ascension symptoms. So when you have these sensations in the body, whatever they are, and you can't seem to find any medical reason, you've been to professionals who seem to know what they're doing, then you ask, is this something a medical doctor can fix? Higher self, is this something a medical doctor can fix? Yes. Is the medical doctor that I need in this town? Yes. Is it, no, this is not going to work. Then you might say, what about an alternative healer? Is there somebody that can help me alternatively? Yes. Higher self, is this something that I know about? No. Higher self, can you bring me someone who would know about it and would tell me so I can get this fixed? It's so amazing. You can, one time in the records, a client said to me, she had gotten her master's. She was working in an environment where she was working as a therapist. She wanted to get her state license so she could practice on her own. And she asked the record keepers if she should take the state exam in December, which was like 6 weeks away, or she should wait till February and have more time to study for it. And the record keeper said, well, you can take it anytime you want. And she said, what does that mean? And they said, well, you'll pass no matter when you take it. And she said, how is that possible if I don't study? And the record keeper said, well, you've got a very good higher self connection that you've been using for a number of years. You can ask your higher self any kind of question you don't know the answer to. And she said, is that legal? And the record keeper said to her, if you were in a crisis and you knew 2 solutions to your patient's problem, would you ask your higher self which one to use?
Right.
And she said, of course. And they said, that's how come it's legal.
Wow. That's an amazing story. And here's the thing, that's also showing us that we have this ability to create a dialogue with our higher self that's suited to our perceptions and understandings. There's no outer teachings that are required. There's probably other people's templates that you can use. Like you said, you give a template in your own book, but ultimately we have the power as humans to create our own dialogue with our higher self with our own mechanisms.
Mm-hmm. It's true. And, it's funny because back at Chichen Itza in 2012, my guides told me to change my presentation and to say, you're not to follow spiritual teachers anymore. Now, I thought that was really funny. I thought that was hilarious. And I fully expected to get a good laugh from people. And they just looked at me.
They were a little dumbfounded, huh? They were just like, what's going on?
And then, I was told to explain, you need to have so much knowing in your center that you could listen to a spiritual teacher and hear 5 things, and maybe one thing isn't quite right for you. So you follow the 4 things that sound good, that feel good, and ignore the 5th. You don't have to lock, stock, and barrel anymore. You don't have to buy everything that they say just because you like 2 things that they say.
Right. Because everyone has their own perspectives based on their own experiences, and it's not necessarily as applicable to all humanity. It's really a personal understanding.
Not only that, but there are many false teachers.
Ooh.
And I joke around. The false teachers are like a lost leader in the grocery store. You know what a lost leader in the grocery store is? A lost leader in the grocery store. They sell your favorite potato chips for less than what they paid for them. Because when you come out, you've spent $100 instead of, $5. So, this is a great bargain. Oh, the other stuff here is probably a great bargain too. So you make this association, and then, you come away and you later check and you go, oh my gosh, I way overpaid over here and here and here. So there are many false teachers that are giving good information, and then they seed it with information that's not appropriate. And the interesting thing is many of those so-called false teachers don't even know that they're false. They think they're doing spiritual stuff. I had a woman come up to me on a event that we were all at, and it was several days. And she came to me and she said, "I love your stuff. I've read all your books, blah blah blah." And I said, "Wow, that's awesome. Do you do your higher self practice?" And she said, "Oh, I have. I've been channeling. I've got it all down. Blah blah blah." And I went, "Great." And I thought to myself, I don't think she's channeling her higher self. And so she gets a reading from someone else, thankfully not me. And she comes back to me all upset and says, that other guide said that I'm channeling this dark energy. And I just looked at her and nodded my head. She was hoping I would say that the other channel was a mess and that it was wrong. And instead, I'm just nodding. Yeah, I understand. And I said, "You never asked me my opinion. You just announced to me, what you thought was so. So I'm not going to be the one to tell you. It's not my job unless you ask." And I've always had that approach, don't, in this environment, and you and I talking, Jake, it's fine. But, someone just is asking me because they know I'm a spiritual teacher, and they ask me a question. Even before, when I was working in corporate, people asked me, "How did you double your donor base at the nonprofit you worked at?" I would give them some half answer. And then they'd say, "Well, I really want to know more." And I'd say, "Okay, I'll tell you more if you come back and ask more." But they never did, So the ascension symptoms can be like the flu. They can be physical sensations. One of the biggest ones is sleep, that we just need more sleep, because as our body levels up to the crystalline DNA that we already are, but it was hidden, with carbon-based DNA that was all we could see. So now that we're, leveling up, we need more time for our body to integrate to the higher vibe that we're bringing in. So as we do that, the sleep becomes super important, because the body needs the downtime to do the integration. So you might wake up at 2:00 in the morning and think, "What am I supposed to do?" And my answer is, that's an ascension symptom. If you wake up at 2 a.m. and you're wide awake, wondering what's going on, and the best thing to do is to get up and do some kind of meditation. And then when you feel like you're done, go back to bed and you'll fall right to sleep.
Interesting. That happens to me quite a bit. That's like the story of my life. Like I have never get enough sleep. I wake up at 2, 3 a.m. almost every night in those same ways. And I feel those downloads and those various energies swirling at those hours.
Right.
Often I just go back to sleep, but you're saying the best thing to do is to utilize that time and those energies while they're there.
Yeah. And what that also means is you could choose to take a meditative state while you're in bed, and you probably would fall right back to sleep. But the wake up is the free will part.
Interesting.
See? You're getting the energies, and you wake up as a way to accept in the reality that you're in right now.
Yeah, because that's my story almost every night for at least the last 3 or 4 years. And you're saying you were there 2012, Chichen Itza. There's false teachers. We know that. But what happened? I just really quick, let's just touch on this. What do you think happened energetically with the 2012 phenomenon? There was so much build up to that, especially if you were into New Age information, metaphysical circles. There was so much build up to that. And then we celebrated, we felt energies, but then things moved. What do you think the biggest impact of that 2012 scenario was?
I think we went up a notch. The whole planet just went up a notch. And enough people were focused on that event as an opportunity. It just lifted everyone up. It's kind of like the tide coming in and the ship's going up, We all leveled up. And that's kind of the joke about everybody's going to be 5D, whether they want to or not, whether they're ready or not, So I noticed a big shift in the way people interacted with each other, with me. And that is exactly what happened. Now, normally people are looking for something else. But when you're aware, and you can observe people's, I'll call it self-absorbed attitude, and then their loving or generous attitude, it's huge. You know, this leveling up occurred after 9/11 also. I was connected to New York City when that happened, and I was in New York the day before, and I was told to go home right away. And then I moved to New York, and one of the things you could tell is there was a kindness that had not been there before, and there was a sense of looking after each other. For example, I'd drop a scarf in the subway, and there's a ton of people moving in both directions, and somebody would pick it up and grab it and run to catch up with me, to give it to me.
There was a jump, there was a vulnerability that was exposed that allowed more love energy to come in, because it hit that primal understanding that if we don't integrate and interface with love, then it could be destruction, perhaps.
Well, it's funny. I think humans are innately pure. Yes. I think humans are innately loving and kind. But we've been taught that the world isn't safe. We've been taught that life isn't fair. We've been taught every man for himself. And so I remember hearing a phrase, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. And I thought to myself, whoa, where did that come from? I was old enough to kind of contemplate it when I first heard it. And I remember thinking, that is so ancient. I mean, it was so foreign to me. So the third dimension is this place that has been saturated with willful energy, willful intent energy that humans are waking up to. You know what? I don't have to do that anymore. I'm not doing that anymore. And that's how we know we're shifting. We're making that shift because people are choosing kindness instead. They're choosing love instead. And they're holding that vibe, whether they're consciously meditating or not. Now, people who are meditating are setting the example, so to speak, energetically. So it's easier for people to level up. One of my favorite phrases is, I'm waking up in 5D, and that sets the stage for when I get up in the morning. And then there's another tool that I share with people, and I think I probably put it in every book also. And that is, I'm asking for a day of heaven on earth.
Yes.
For me and everyone I come in contact with, and everyone I'm in contract with. So I'm in contact with you or the postal clerk or the bank teller, but I'm in contract with my webmaster or my assistant. I might not see them every day, but I'm still holding that 5D vibe, heaven on earth. And this is a cool story. This has to go way back, way back, near the very beginning.
Okay.
And I was on a plane coming back into my home city, which was Madison, Wisconsin at the time. And all my flights went in and out of Chicago. And I was coming from the West Coast, and I'd flown overnight, and I got off the plane, and the clerk, because it was a small town, was the person handling the baggage was the same person who would take my ticket, when I first check in. So she saw me and recognized me because I was there every week, called me by name and said, "Hi, how are you doing?" And I had gotten in the habit of explaining a bad day by calling it a day from what. And that was a bad idea, because even though I didn't put that word in my regular vocabulary, it came out in that moment. And I said, well, this is my day from blank, because I have to be back here in 3 hours because I'm flying to the East Coast, blah, blah, blah. And she looked at me kind of funny, because it was kind of a strange thing to say. And then I looked at her and I said, but I'm having a day of heaven on earth because I'm flying with United. And she laughed and I laughed, and I went home, and there was 1 inch of water on the basement floor. I could hear water running, but we couldn't find a source. My house was empty. I had a housemate that was renting from me. but she ignored it and went to work. So here I am, like 10 o'clock in the morning. I run across the street, get my neighbor. He comes over. I call the plumber. The plumber came on time. He asked me where to drill because my neighbor said it's probably inside the pipes. And this is typically what has happened with some of the pipes in this neighborhood, blah, blah, blah. I asked my higher self where to drill, and he could see the water squirting out of a pipe. And that's one spot. He wanted to drill in the upstairs bathroom. And I said, no, it's down here. So all in all, it cost like $100. My neighbor came over with extra fans. We got everything all set up. My neighbor said he'd check on the house later. I went to the bank, made my deposit. That's how long ago it was. Nowadays everything just flows through our electronic systems. And as I'm in the car driving home, I'm thinking, I could have almost taken that flight that I was supposed to be on, which I had canceled and moved it to, like a 4:00 flight. So I walk in the house and the phone's ringing, and it's United Airlines. And they say to me, your flight out of Madison is running an hour late. And both flights are running an hour late, actually. And if you take the flight you're booked on, you're going to miss your connection to the East Coast. Is there any way you can be on the earlier flight, which is now leaving an hour later? And I had just in my head had that thought. I only need another 30, 40 minutes to do this. And I said, yeah, actually, my suitcase has already been changed out. I'm 15 minutes from the airport. I'll be right there. I'm sitting on the plane thinking to myself, holy cow. Hardly any money was exchanged. I had so much support. Sometimes my neighbor's gone for the summer. Everything worked. And I asked, how did that happen? And I was reminded, well, you said you wanted a day of heaven on earth. So the next time I had a chock-a-block day, I asked for a day of heaven on earth. Got the same thing. Now, keep in mind, we're talking 5D. And at that time, way, way, way back when, I had not put it together that when you ask for a day of heaven on earth, you're literally saying, I'm going to be 5D.
Right. It's an intention.
The third time, I thought to myself, you know what? I can ask for this every day, and so can you. And so can everybody who's listening. Ask for a day of heaven on earth for this day. Now, what's really cool is one of my students said to me one day, I really have been practicing this heaven on earth thing. And I think it's really working, but we're getting ready for a family reunion. So I decided I would start asking for a week of heaven on earth when my family, congealed in a big house in North Carolina by the beach. And we were all going to share this big house and have a family reunion for a week. And she said, but I have one sister who's always a drama queen. And we were all really concerned about that. So I asked for a week of heaven on earth. And she said, I started doing this like 3 months ahead of time, a week of heaven on earth for the family reunion. And she said, we had the best time. The day before the family reunion started, my sister calls and says, I'm not coming. So of course she's looking for trouble. But then she says, I'm checking myself into a detox facility. So A, she wasn't there to cause trouble. And B, nobody worried about her because they knew she was being taken care of. And C, they knew she was doing something good for her to help her change and be a better person. Isn't that cool?
Yes, all those things are very positive. And then that's part of that personal heaven on earth manifestation. Yeah. And these are some of the techniques actually that you train people with in this book, Living Your Best 5D Life. There's so many things in there. Earlier, you talked about, and you told us that story about somebody that thought that they were communicating with their higher self, but they weren't. What does that mean? I mean, how do we know that we're communicating with our higher self? And what are these other beings that are able to hijack into the situation?
I try not to get in too much to who these other guys are. And I just call them those that would have us fail.
Okay.
Because it doesn't matter.
Right.
It truly doesn't matter. And if we name them, we've given them some power. And I don't want them to be feared individually by whoever they are. Instead, they're just in the way. They're just a boulder in the way. So how can you tell?
Yes.
And the answer is you ask. You say, let's say you feel an energy move in, and people can feel an energy move in. It's a little bit like when your leg falls asleep. You feel this energy kind of shift over a part of your body. And that's when an energy moves in. And you simply ask, if this energy is not of 100% God light, you need to leave now. If you're 100% God light, you can stay. So whenever a piece of information comes in that's suspect, is this 100% God light? And I've had students who thought they were channeling their higher self for months and months and months, or their guides or something like that. And it turns out that they weren't. And the way to know is to simply ask, is this energy 100% God light? And if you don't get an answer, that means the answer is no. If you get a yes answer and you say, if this is 100% God light, you may say. One of the things that starts to happen is you have the capacity to notice the difference between your own thought and outside influences. Because initially, everybody thinks that their thoughts are all their own thoughts, you see. And it takes some awareness to help you see the difference between your own thought and outside influences. And on the positive, you can actually have awareness of your personality preference and then ask your higher self, and your higher self says, don't do that. You want to go here, and you ask your higher self, is it my highest and best good to do this? And your higher self says, yes. And you're thinking, dang, I didn't want to do that, but I was willing to ask the question. So what happens as a result of that is really remarkable. Amazing, wonderful things happen when you ask your higher self, especially about stuff you don't care about. But you cannot do that. You may not do that until you've finished your 6 weeks of practice. And this circles me back to the 3 rules, the 3 protocols that are part of the protocol for higher self. And that is, you ask unimportant, insignificant questions of your higher self by naming your higher self. Higher self, is it my highest and best good to have this cookie? Like that. Unimportant, insignificant questions 30 to 50 times a day for 45 days.
Wow.
45 days, because we get new DNA at the end of 45 days. It's a cycle. The second part of the protocol is always follow through. So if you ask a question, you must follow through. So the lady that I was in China teaching, and the lady that asked the question, she came to class and she said, why would my higher self lie to me? And I said, well, what did you ask? And she said, well, I'm a vegan, and I asked my higher self this morning if I should have meat. And my higher self said yes. So she's mad. And the third rule is, well, we'll get to the third rule in a minute. So there's 2 rules that she knows all 3. And she's pretty good at her higher self connection. So I said, well, you broke 2 of the 3 rules. You asked about something you cared about, and you weren't willing to follow through. And meanwhile, the whole class is laughing because why did she ask her higher self if she should have meat? She was testing to see if her higher self would be right. But during your 45 days of practice, you're not allowed to test your higher self. You're only allowed to ask about things that you don't care about and that you're willing to do. And then the third thing is you set aside all your other divination tools. So not to say that the pendulum is bad or that muscle testing isn't good or kinesiology or any of that. You simply set it aside for the same reason you wouldn't learn German and French at the same time. You're choosing to give yourself this narrow focus for 45 days. And certainly the pendulum's good for things that are close to you, your vitamin regime, your healing modalities, the therapist you might go to. But your higher self's got the goods on everything. Your higher self knows what you know, but it's also connected to source. So it can read the field this way, as well as where you're at. So your higher self will give you information and answer your question in a way that you can see positive things later. For example, you're looking for somebody and you haven't been able to locate them. So then one day you get together with a friend and they say, will you pick the restaurant? So you ask your higher self, is it our highest and best good to go to this place or that place? And your higher self says, go to the pizza place. And you're thinking, pizza? I don't even eat pizza. All right, fine. I've asked, said I didn't care. I'm going. And you discover they've got a nice salad bar. But then while you're standing at the salad bar, you run into the guy you were looking for. So cool stuff starts to happen like that. And you get a history. Now, how do we make decisions normally? We normally look at historical data. We check the web. We check consumer reports if we're going to buy a car, for example. We check with our friends. We look at what's on the road. We do all this research, but it's all based on history. Your higher self has the information that's pertinent right here, right now. And that's something that we haven't become accustomed to doing because so much of our life we spend either in the past or in the future. And I asked my guides one day, give me an example of how I can explain this to people so they really understand. And I'm laying on the grass one day, and this answer popped in, and I remember bursting out laughing. And they reminded me of a time when we only had network television, and it would be a local station. And then maybe a hailstorm was coming. So they would interrupt local programming to tell you what's going on right now. And the hailstorm wasn't predicted or wasn't anticipated, but it's already upon us. And, if you have your car out in the driveway, pull it under the carport or the garage. Like that. So what happens is the higher self is tuned in to exactly what you need to know now, even if you don't have external data to support that.
Interesting. And because, like you said, it's just they're accessing all the information, the Akashic records, and more. Could you imagine if we taught our children in elementary school, to connect with our higher self, to find out certain specific information as if it were just a normal part of everyday society? That's a paradigm. If we instilled a different paradigm in these children to see that as normal, can you imagine where we would be?
It'd be pretty interesting.
It would be beautiful.
Pretty interesting.
Here's something I want to ask you about.
Go
ahead.
It's very powerful. Because the thing is, and this is the thing that I tell people when they say, well, can we not follow our higher self? And I always remind them, it's free will. You definitely can choose to not follow your higher self after you ask, but not during your practice period. Your practice period is a narrow window of 6 weeks. Once you complete your practice period, if you ask your higher self something and you think, I'm not following that, I'm not doing that, you just decide you don't want to, even though you've checked in and the highest and best choice is this, but you want that, go ahead and do it. Go ahead and do what you want. Because in hindsight, you will see that your higher self is always right. And I always joke around and say, you know what? You can do that, but you probably only do it once. Because once you see how you lost out or how it didn't turn out at all the way you had hoped, you get it that your higher self is always right.
Right. So there's some value in that knowledge.
Oh, it's huge.
Oh, wow. So let me ask you this question. Now, a lot of people tend to put these beings that they interface with, whether they're angels or loving ETs or these oversouls, they tend to, as humans, put them on a pedestal, or even plant spirits, put them on a pedestal. But truly, because we are light beings and they're light beings just in a different form, we are all in a sense equal. Do you feel like humanity, like as we grow and we're moving into 5D, we have to be careful not to attach ourselves to these energies and kind of just see the equality in everything? What do you think about
that? Well, this is very interesting because I see the humans as the higher beings. Because we're on the hard template. The angels and the ascended masters, they don't have to deal with the level of temptation that humans have to deal with. So that's one piece. The ancient Egyptians actually saw the animals as higher beings because they were closer to nature and they were both left brain and right brain. They could know what they needed to do, but they're also in tune with nature. They knew to leave the area if there was going to be a big storm or something like that.
Right.
And we tend to elevate the angels and the ascended masters because they've been where we've been. The ascended masters have been where we've been, generally speaking, and the angelic realm are directly messengers from God. And I turned that question on its head and said, if you have that, why would you want it? Why would you bother with your higher self? And the answer is because the angels and your guides want you to develop this connection with your higher self because you are becoming your higher self. You are becoming the ascended master you. And those people are there as coaches and way showers. They are not the being that controls you. And we, each of us, have responsibility to ourselves to develop this connection so powerfully that even if we thought, the channeled being that we thought was a high being told us to do X, we would be able to check in and say, is this in the highest and best good of me, of Maureen St. Germain? If we got no, then we wouldn't do it. We would know not to do it. And, this is another layer. We can go all over the map, and I know at some point we have to close out, but there are many souls that were, I'll say, on the dark side in other lifetimes, and they're back and they've chosen to be on the light side, but they've got all these old contracts that they signed up for, and they have to undo all that stuff. And so part of that undoing is them channeling the wrong stuff and then figuring out, oh my gosh, that's not what I want to do. And even my saying it, the wrong stuff, isn't quite exactly what I mean. It's counterproductive stuff.
Right.
So, I've had a lot of students. I have a lot of clients who were fallen angels, and they're back to make a difference and to assist humanity in shifting. And it's kind of like, sometimes when you choose one side in a polarity battle, and then you get a chance to explore the bigger picture, you realize maybe you shouldn't have done that. So you want to come back and work the system in a positive way. And that's what's happening. And so it's very interesting.
I'm noticing that as well. I'm noticing that as well because these beings, they have this power, and in a specific lifetime, perhaps they used it in a way that was detrimental to life. It was detrimental to expansion. It caused death, destruction, things like that. But in essence, that being was a super powerful being, whether a manifestor or just magnetic or something. They graduate from this dimension. They have their panoramic life review, the post-life experience. They, on a soul level, realize they messed up. They understand completely what they did wrong, and they integrate that in that dimension and then say something to the effect of, okay, let me back in. I'll do it. I'll use all my powers for good this time. Let me back in. I'll do it right. That sound a little
well said. Well said. Well said. And I think, and this goes back to the children, the most important thing that we all get to discover is that life is all about experiences and discovery. And it's our job to have experiences that allow us to add to the database. And all experiences do that. And I think the reason that we're now moving to 5D has to do with the fact that Source said, okay, we've had enough of this extreme polarity stuff. Let's reel it back in and move on.
Yes. I mean, we're all growing. It's all part of the universal evolution. And that new place, how we define polarity could just literally be like just below pure light. I mean, it doesn't have to be the extreme polarities that we're experiencing currently in this dimension, though there is so much good things. There's so much growth, like you're saying, the openness, what people are engaging with, what they're integrating with, all of those things. And there are entities helping us. There's those that wish to hold us in the 3D, like you were talking about, but there are other entities like the 5-ray secret Elohim. Can you I know we don't have a ton of time left, but I want to ask you about the 5-ray secret Elohim. Tell me about that. What is going on there?
There are 5 secret ray Elohim that remain unnamed, which we don't know their names.
Okay.
And there's also 5 secret rays in the physical body: the palms of your hands, the spleen, and the soles of your feet. And those chakras can project. So they're literally like laser beams that you can project with intention. So these 5 secret Elohim are aligned with the 5 Dhyani Buddhas and this connection with your palm. And I don't know anybody else who's pulled this together, but when I saw that there were 5 secret, these 3 categories of the Elohim, the chakras, and the Dhyani Buddhas. And the Dhyani Buddhas represent the 5 poisons: avarice, greed, those kinds of things. The opportunity to transform those, I'll call it cardinal behaviors, into their highest light form is possible with clear intention. And I wrote a lovely little, I don't know, maybe 8-minute meditation to the 5 Dhyani Buddhas. And all you're doing is singing their names, and their vibration then kind of settles down over us and helps us to behave differently, to move into a place of compassion, to become more powerful. So the 5 secret rays are usable. And that's why when people send energy, they often use their hands. They often are aiming the palm of their hand.
Right. Like so. Yes.
Yeah. So it's a very powerful thing to do. And when you do it with intention, it's even more powerful. So when we activate those energies, it like turns the lights on.
Interesting. And it seems to correlate, though, with the wounds of Jesus on the cross. Is there some relation there to that?
I think there might be, but these things occurred. This information existed in spiritual information long before the time of Christ.
Yes, but it seems like perhaps in an esoteric sense, nailing him to the cross was squashing out or trying to kill those
very likely
secret ray chakras.
Yeah. Okay, so if Superman's power is in his hands and we put a hole in it, then he won't be able to use it.
Right.
Yeah. I like it.
It's a whole other layer perhaps to the story. We have talked about so much, and we've barely touched the tip of the iceberg with the information that you have in your book. It's an incredible book. I do want to tell people where to find it because we've had such a great conversation. I know that we have to go, but we can do this again. But you can find this information at stgermainmysteryschool.com. You can learn about the Ascension Institute, the monthly online study group, and all of that. And can you tell us a little bit about that? What is the Ascension Institute and how can people connect with it?
The monthly Ascension Institute, it's actually the Ascension Institute itself is a year-long program.
Okay.
And we take people through training to help them expand their spiritual consciousness and to integrate it into their 3D life and find ways to elevate their meditations and their understanding of what's really going on in the reality, and then to be such a light that they can influence the environment around them, whether they're not proselytizing. They're just being present, and their presence elevates the environment. You know, we have people who are professionals. Like I've had I had a lot of medical doctors in my training. I've had lawyers in my training. I've had nurses, therapists, all kinds of people, and some just everyday people who want this and have used the opportunity to grow. And there's lots of information on our website. If this is something you're interested in, you should write me and let me know. We are actually at the beginning of this year. So depending upon when I hear from people, I might let them in this year's training.
Oh, wow.
Or I might ask them to wait till next year. And then the monthly membership call is a way for people to connect with me personally, because I'm there live and I'll answer questions, but I'm also offering some trainings and some information about whatever comes up in that moment. It could be something that's happening, in the social environment. It could be something that a person's experiencing. So it gives people a chance to experience, firsthand teaching, just like a lot of teachers do, question and answer.
Sure.
And then I have Akashic Records trainings that we offer.
Wow.
And those are live and interactive, and they're very powerful. And then I have a program called the Founders Circle, where we're training people in 3 categories: the Akashic Records, how to open your own and others, and secondarily open the records for other people as a business. So we're giving them business training, and then we're also giving them marketing training so that they can create a business. And this is a very 5D way, because we ask for some money up front, but the big money that they pay us isn't until they start making money. So we're investing in them, and we're taking a chance, that they're going to graduate and keep going, because we want them to grow and we want to be there for them.
You need those tools as you're out there. That's how you create things.
Right. It's especially hard nowadays. So that's important. And then we also have online classes that are pre-recorded that you can take at any time, including the Merkaba training and many other trainings on sacred geometry and things like that. And I have found that I am teaching sacred geometry in a way that's never been taught anywhere. And one day I had a man who was he had a PhD in physics and mathematics. And he said to me, if I had learned geometry the way you teach it, I would never have had any issue whatsoever. It would have been an easy piece of cake. So I tend to create correlations so people can remember.
Oh, and all of that, again, is available on your website. They can find any of that information, stgermainmysteryschool.com. Is that correct?
Yes.
And you also have an app too, the Illuminate meditation app.
The app kind of came to me. I have been writing meditations all my life. I was a music major in college, and so I write all the background music, and I'm inspired with the meditations themselves on what to say. A lot of them were created to help me through some difficult time, but they've turned into some very powerful tools for people. And the app is called Illuminate, and it's a purple box with a gold arrow in it. So it's pretty easy to find. If you don't find it under the word Illuminate, then just add the word Maureen and a space and then Maureen. And it has right now about over 30 guided meditations. And then we're going to be adding another 10 or so in the next, 3 months. We're sorting that out right now. And what's interesting is there's so many meditations for so many different purposes. Bringing in a beloved, letting go of a beloved, letting go of your home, selling your house, meditations to the angels, meditations to bring in business partners. I could go on and on and on. And so they're very powerful. There's even one called divine government meditation. So when you're humping mad about the stuff that's going on in our political arena, go do the divine government meditation and start praying for all the leaders to be the best they can be. Anyway, the meditation is set up with 7 meditations that are free, that are included. Everything's free. And then if you like what you hear and you want to subscribe, then there's either a yearly or a monthly fee, like a lot of apps. So that's amazing. Been a lot of fun. And a man who was a fan of my work came to me. He owned a company that built apps. And so we've been working with him.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And, I'd been saying, my niece had been saying to me for years, you need an app. And I went, yeah, I do. And then, we're busy with other things. So it's kind of cool how it happened.
Well, law of attraction, you attracted that person. You were in sync.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we have a lot of tools for people. And I'm very grateful to have been the conduit of these things. Many of the tools that I have for the public were created for me. When I was down and out financially, I was in the Akashic Records, and they gave me a bunch of information. And then they finished with keep dancing in the river of golden opportunity. So, I start doing this meditation that they've given me, and I get a phone call from a friend who owns a flower essence company. And she says, I'm in big trouble. This company owes me 10K. This company owes me 14K. And I'm going to have to, I don't know what I'm going to do. She's like desperate. And I say to her, well, I was just downloaded with this meditation. I wonder, would you like to do it with me? Yeah. Calls me within a couple of hours, says, that's amazing. I got a phone call from one of them. They told me to come over and I could pick up a check.
Oh,
2 weeks later, same thing, same story, same drama. We do the meditation, and she calls me the next day and says, once again, you saved the day. It took 2 days this time, but it's still, the meditation really works. So then I went back to the altar and said, am I supposed to release this to the public? And, it's like, well, duh. And so it's called Dancing in the River of Golden Opportunity.
Wow. Which is, again, on that app.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Well, this has been such an amazing conversation. We didn't even get into the 8D Merkaba information. There's so much to talk about, but I have one more question.
We have to do the 8D Merkaba another time.
We're going to have you back. There's no doubt. There's no doubt in my mind. I can already feel it, but I have one more question before we go. So what happens when humanity gets there? We love each other. We've all integrated the Christ consciousness. The earth is just this amazing 5D place. We've dialed it all in. We've got to that point. Then what happens? Where does humanity go after that?
We start creating beautiful things. We create more beautiful art that people have the time to appreciate and enjoy. We grow beautiful flowers and amazing food. We love our animals. We have families. We understand that we have stewardship, and we like being stewards. We raise our children to be stewards of the earth, and we respect one another and the choices that we make. And there's lots of choice, lots and lots of choice.
Do you think that's when we'll truly interface with the galactic family in a material sense?
I hope that we connect with our galactic family before we actually make it all the way to 5D, because I think their presence will inspire people to step up.
Absolutely. It's going to be a quantum leap if they show up in that way.
It's like so many cool movies that you can watch. There's a lot of movies about victories these days. Someone becoming, like, there's a movie out about the Navajo Nation basketball team. And then there's a movie about a 10-part series about Michael Jordan. And you see these icons who stepped up. They had adversity, but they stepped up, and they created a consciousness of compassion and caring. If you've ever watched a whole game that Michael Jordan has played, for example, he always hugs or shakes the hand of the opponent team, and he is gracious and kind. And there's no arrogance there. It's very amazing. And that's where we're headed.
Wow.
To be able to be joyful in our pursuits of physical excellence, spiritual excellence, and so on, without stepping on the toes of another.
Yes. And guess what, people? That's inevitable. It's happening. It's destiny, you could say. It's written into the code of the universe. Well, thank you again, Maureen. What an incredible conversation we've had. That was amazing.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, everyone, check out the book, Living Your Best 5D Life, Timeless Tools to Achieve and Maintain Your New Reality. She has other books, Mastering Your 5D Self, Waking Up in 5D, The Illuminate app, stgermainmysteryschool.com. All of that's there. Check her out. Maureen, please hold through the outro music. And everyone else, we will see you next week. Midnight on Earth.